Namaskar. My mission Sanatana Dharma continues. Last week, we explored the Bhavishya Purana, a scripture that turned our gaze toward the future we are collectively shaping, reminding us that destiny is not accidental but shaped by Dharma and human conduct. This week, we move to the Vamana Purana, a profound narrative on power, humility, and ethical limits. Through the seemingly simple avatara of Vamana, Sanatana Dharma delivers a timeless lesson. Greatness is not measured by expansion without restraint, but by self awareness and surrender to Dharma. In an age where power, influence, and ambition often overshadow values, the Vamana Purana speaks with striking relevance, guiding individuals, leaders, and societies towards balance, humility, and inner strength. We live in an age where power is celebrated, expansion is admired, and success is often measured by how much one can acquire, dominate, or control. Nations compete for influence, corporations chase endless growth, and individuals measure worth by visibility and scale. Yet, history repeatedly reminds us that unchecked power ultimately collapses under its own weight. So, at such a moment in human civilization, Sanatana Dharma presents before us a deceptively simple yet profoundly powerful avatara, Vamana, the dwarf incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Not armed with weapons, not roaring with authority, Vamana arrives with humility, restraint, and divine intelligence. And the Vamana Purana teaches that the true greatness lies not in expansion without limits, but in knowing one's boundaries. It is a timeless lesson for rulers and citizens, institutions and individuals, and especially for the modern world struggling to balance ambition with ethics. And Vamana Purana is one of the 18 Mahapuranas and is traditionally attributed to Maharishi Vedavyas. While many Puranas focus on cosmology, genealogy, or ritual prescriptions, Vamana Purana stands out for its strong emphasis on dharma and humility, limits of power and authority, relationship between devotion and ego, sacred geography and tirthas, the ethical responsibility of rulers, Raja Dharma. So the text weaves together theology, history, and moral instruction, using the story of King Bali and Lord Vamana as its central axis. And importantly, the Purana does not portray Bali as a villain. Instead, it presents him as a great but flawed king, making the narrative deeply human and universally relevant. And King Mahabali, grandson of Prahalada, was a ruler of extraordinary generosity, discipline, and devotion. Under his reign, prosperity flourished, injustice declined, and charity became the hallmark of governance. However, success slowly gave rise to subtle ego, not cruelty, but the pride in one's righteousness and power. So the Devas, sensing imbalance, approached Lord Vishnu. And Vishnu incarnated as Vamana, a young brahmachari dwarf, and arrived at Bali's grand yajna. With humility and calm, Vamana asked for just 3 steps of land, and amused Bali agreed. So, in an instant, Vamana expanded into Trivikrama. With 1 step, he covered the earth, with the second, the heavens, and there was no space left for the third. Realizing the true divine truth, Mahabali bowed his head and offered it for the final step. Thus, ego dissolved into surrender. And Vishnu blessed Mahabali not with destruction but with honor, protection, and spiritual elevation. So, the Vamana Purana offers layered teachings. Power must be governed by Dharma. Power itself is not evil. Ambition is not sinful. What destroys individuals and societies is power without self awareness. Mahabali's story teaches that even noble intentions can become dangerous when limits are forgotten. And ego does not always roar. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it appears as generosity, success, or moral superiority. And Vamana Purana wants us to constantly introspect. And the greatest conquest in the story is not Vishnu's cosmic expansion, but Mahabali's inner surrender. And Ahankara Vinashaya Vishnur Vamana Rupa Druk. That is, Vishnu assumes the form of Vamana to destroy ego. And Na Bhumir Na Sa Lokhaste Yavad Adharma Vardhanam. That is, no land or world truly belongs to one who nourishes adharma. And Vamana Purana is extraordinarily relevant when viewed through the lens of modern science and social systems. What ancient sages expressed through avatara symbolism, contemporary disciplines explain through models, limits, and data. Modern physics teaches us that every system has non negotiable limits: the speed of light, gravitational thresholds, carrying capacity, and tolerance ranges. Ecology reinforces this truth. When a species exceeds the carrying capacity of its environment, collapse follows. The story of Vamana and Mahabali is a civilizational illustration of limits theory. Bali's rule was prosperous, but expansion crossed ethical and cosmic boundaries. And Vamana's three steps are not punishment, they are course correction. And Maryadham Langayed Yastu sa Nashyatina Samkshayaha. That is, who crosses rightful limits perishes without doubt. And modern economics has accepted a hard truth. Infinite growth in finite system is impossible. Debt crisis, environmental degradation, and inequality are all symptoms of ignoring limits. And Mahabali's generosity turned into entitlement. The Purana warns us that even good intentions, when unregulated, become destructive. And Vamana symbolizes ethical regulation, growth guided by restraint. And psychology identifies ego inflation as a major cause of leadership failure. Success reduces self awareness. Power creates echo chambers. Gradually, humility disappears. So, Vamana Purana shows that ego does not always appear as cruelty. Sometimes it appears as moral superiority, and Mahabali's greatness made his fall instructive, not condemnable. And to the youth of the 21st century, Vamana Purana delivers a message of balance, not renunciation. Today's world rewards visibility, influence, and rapid success. Social media amplifies ego, while algorithms reward outage and self promotion. In such an environment, humility appears outdated, but it is precisely what prevents inner collapse. And Vamana teaches young minds that ambition must be paired with self restraint. Careers flourish when competence is combined with character. Relationship survives when power gives way to empathy. And Namrata Bhushanam Pumsam Vinay Sri Vivardhanaha, that is, humility is the ornament of a person, modesty increases prosperity. So the Purana reassures youth: you do not lose greatness by bowing, you preserve it. And the Vamana Purana ultimately transforms theology into responsibility. Dharma is not weakness, it is structured strength. It defines boundaries so that freedom does not become chaos. And adoption of Dharma begins with restraint in speech, consumption, ambition, and judgment. Small disciplines prevent large collapses. So, protection of Dharma today means resisting arrogance, entitlement, and moral absolutism. Power must remain answerable to conscience. And Sanatana Dharma spreads not through force but through lived examples. A humble leader of influences more than a loud ruler. So the Vamana Purana remains us the true authority bows to truth. And the Vamana Purana leaves us with a profound reminder. Expansion without humility leads to collapse. Surrender guided by Dharma leads to liberation. So, may we learn to grow, but never forget our limits. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. Best regards, Raju Krishnan, Hyderabad.